So I've been working on this Anet printer kit for a little while now, and one thing that I'm really glad that I did when I first got the printer is flash Marlin onto it. And the reason for that is I had left the printer alone for a little while, went to the store and all that, and I came back with a thermal runaway error due to a shorted wire on the heat bed. Now, the original firmware that comes with this printer does not have any kind of thermal runaway protection whatsoever. So I really cringe to think of what could have happened if I didn't have Marlin set up on here. So if you have one of these inexpensive Anet printer kits, or really any kind of inexpensive kit, in my opinion it is crucial that you get Marlin set up on this printer, not only for the safety reasons but for all the extra features that you get, such as auto bed leveling. So in this video I'm going to show you how to set up Marlin using a pretty easy tool that they have on GitHub, and you'll see how simple it actually is to set it up here in a moment. Alright, so to install Marlin onto your printer, what we can do to make it easier is to get the Marlin config tool. So go to GitHub, type in Marlin config, and the first thing that should come up is the Marlin firmware instant configurator. Go ahead and click on that, and we're going to scroll down to the install Marlin config from binaries. So go to the latest release here, and it will take you to this. Now I did link this in the description for you, but just in case you don't have that link anymore, or the link's not working, you can just type in Marlin config in GitHub and it should take you here. So go ahead and find the one for your operating system. Since I'm running Windows 10, I'm going to use this one, and go ahead and save that to your desktop. So this will take about a minute, and once it's set up we can go ahead and get the tool running. So now that we have it downloaded, we're going to go to the desktop. We're going to go ahead and run the tool. This will take about a second to install. Okay, now that we're in the tool, there's a couple things we're going to need before we can begin to modify Marlin and get it flashed to our printer. The first thing we need is to install Git. I already have it installed, but if you don't, just click on here and it'll take you to where you can install it. So just click on the one for your OS and get it set up. Next, we're going to need Platform IO. So if you don't have it installed, just go ahead and click Auto Install, and it'll take a little bit of time for this one to set up. But the reason why we need this is because you can't flash your 3D printer without it. You can still modify Marlin if you want to without it, but if you want to get it flashed, you're going to need this tool. So once that tool's finished, the next thing we can do is click on Open Folder. Now we need to be able to make an area to where all these files can be saved to. So I'm going to make one on the desktop. So I'm just going to call it Marlin firmware. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so select that folder, and what it will do is it'll begin installing, or rather downloading, all of the files to this folder so you can begin the configuration. Okay, so now that we have the Marlin configurator tool open, the first thing we can do is we can get the defaults for the printer that we're using. So go to the folder that you extracted everything to, go into Marlin, you'll see this, go into Marlin again, and then you'll see this folder called Example Configurations. Double click on it and you'll see a whole list of different things. Now I'm running an Anet, so I'm going to double click on that, and I'm running an A6. So here are our default configuration files. So we can take this, we can drag these in, and there will be an area where it says just drag and drop files here. Drop them there, and now all of the settings that are best for this printer will be changed and will be the ones that are highlighted. The highlighted one just means that it was changed. So there are a couple things that we should look at though before we continue on with flashing Marlin. Now the first thing that you can change is the custom machine name. Call it whatever you want. You can call it something, doesn't really matter, but whatever you have there is what your printer will be called on the screen. So from there you can add a couple other things. This is the default bed size and all that. Probably best not to mess with that. To go down, make sure all this is set correctly, like you got one extruder obviously. When I first did this, most of my settings were actually incorrect. It looks like they've fixed the configuration files since then, but it doesn't hurt to check everything just before you flash. So for here, make sure the temp sensors are set to the 5th option, which is this one here, the ATC 104 GT-2. That's for both the extruder, which is sensor 0, and sensor bed. Also, it would be a good time to mention to scroll back up and make sure that the motherboard is Anet 1.0. It'll just say Anet 10 though, but make sure that's selected. It's the 69th option. So go down, we'll go past the sensors again. Max temp is 130 on the bed. A couple other things we can look at. If you've already calibrated your steps per millimeter and you figured out all the measurements and all that, now would be a good time to put those in here. You can also have a look at everything else. If you've already adjusted for all that, it'd be a good time to plug all of that in. A couple other things. The auto bed leveling system, which I believe is down here, yes. If you are setting up auto bed leveling, this is where you'll want to be to adjust most, if not all, of your settings. I'm planning on making a tutorial on how to set up auto bed leveling for the Anet A6, but for now we're going to leave that off. The biggest thing that you do want to take a look at for your printer in particular, I'll also be sure that EEPROM settings is enabled. Scroll down here. Make sure SD support is enabled, because otherwise you won't be able to use an SD card. Another thing is the Anet Full Graphics LCD. The Anet A8 does not use a full graphics LCD, but the A6 does. So you need to make sure this is enabled, otherwise you might not get any graphics on the screen at all. So once you've got all your settings figured out and you've double checked over everything, now we can compile to make sure everything's working correctly. So we'll scroll back up and go to compile here and hit the arrow on the side. Now these are all the different boards that the program can compile for. You want to select the Anet 1.0 board if you're using an Anet printer, or whatever board it is that you're using on yours. So since I'm using the Anet, I will hit compile, and this log will come up. This log will give you all the information that you need and will tell you if there's any errors during the compiling process. Okay, so we have a success for our Anet 10. So we're good to go. Now what you'll want to do for your final step is hit flash. Now of course you need to make sure that you select what port your printer is on. Now of course there's no ports on mine because currently my 3D printer is not hooked up. It's currently running a job right now. But when you hook up yours to your computer, you will see COM3, COM4, or COM something on the bottom here. So what you'll do is you'll click on that and then you'll hit flash, and it will run the recompiling process again, and then it will flash it at the end. So it'll tell you once it's successfully flashed. It takes a little while because it has to confirm to make sure everything's good, but once that's done, then Marlin is successfully flashed on your 3D printer. Now with my Anet printer that I have set up here, right now I'm running a print for a figurine that I wanted to do. This right here is the auto bed leveling sensor. You can kind of see the little orange probe on the side. That is what I have set up running in Marlin right now, and my plan is to make a tutorial on how to do that using the same methods of Marlin here. But just having Marlin for the safety features, just in case there's any thermal runaway problems, is a huge benefit, especially for a printer like this. There have been known to be a couple issues with this printer, and while there haven't been too many reports on fire hazards, there have been some, and it's best to have as many safety features as possible. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you all have any questions, please leave a comment below and I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you very much. See you on the next one.